Welcome to our midweek meeting for this week, September 1st to 7th, 2025. Let us begin with the consideration of treasures from God's Word.
My dear brothers and sisters, we live in a world filled with customs, traditions, and beliefs that may appear harmless, even beautiful, on the surface. But beneath many of these practices lie dangers, spiritual dangers, that can distance us from our loving Father Jehovah. That is why today we will focus on a vital theme: rejecting unscriptural beliefs and customs, obeying Jehovah, and enjoying the true happiness that comes from doing so. Let us open our hearts and minds as we examine together several key scriptures, beginning with Proverbs 29:18, which tells us, "Where there is no vision, the people go unrestrained, but happy are those who observe the law." Proverbs 29:18. This verse teaches us that when people live without spiritual direction, they live without boundaries. They become easy prey for superstition, human tradition, and demonic influence. However, when we observe Jehovah's law, His clear, loving guidance, we experience real happiness. Why? Because Jehovah's law is designed to protect us. It gives us direction. It gives our life purpose and meaning. It draws us closer to Him, and yet millions today are living in spiritual darkness. Many are shackled by fear of demons, by superstition, and by harmful customs passed down through generations. Let us be clear. You need not fear the demons. The Bible tells us plainly that Jehovah is more powerful than Satan. 2 Chronicles 16:9 assures us, "The eyes of Jehovah are roving about through all the earth to show His strength in behalf of those whose heart is complete toward Him." In the first century, faithful Christians in Ephesus demonstrated what it means to take Jehovah's side. Acts 19:19 and 20 tells us that quite a number of those who practiced magical arts brought their books together and burned them up before everybody. James 4:7 gives us this powerful command: "Subject yourselves to God, but oppose the devil, and he will flee from you." This is a promise. If we actively submit to Jehovah through prayer, obedience, and faithful service, then Satan will flee from us. He cannot control us if Jehovah is protecting us. But to remain protected, we must also examine customs and traditions in our family, our culture, and even our personal preferences. Proverbs 29:3 gives this straightforward warning: "A man who loves wisdom makes his father rejoice, but the one who keeps company with prostitutes squanders his wealth." This verse goes beyond physical immorality. It teaches a broader lesson. Associating with wrong conduct leads to spiritual ruin. If we attach ourselves to customs or holidays rooted in false worship or immorality, we are not using godly wisdom. We risk losing something far more valuable than money. We risk our relationship with Jehovah. So what can help us determine whether a certain tradition is acceptable or not? The Bible provides the method. James 1:5 invites us, "If any one of you is lacking in wisdom, let him keep asking God, for He gives generously to all and without reproaching, and it will be given him." It may also help to remember that many people are not trying to mislead us intentionally. Family, friends, and workmates may urge us to participate in customs they cherish. Their pressure may be emotional, intense, and well-meaning, but that is when we must lean on Jehovah's strength. Proverbs 29:25 captures this struggle perfectly. "Trembling at men is a snare, but the one trusting in Jehovah will be protected." Yes, if we fear human opinions more than God's standards, we fall into a dangerous trap. Trying to please everyone can lead us to compromise our faith, our values, and our peace of mind. But those who trust in Jehovah, who choose loyalty to Him over popularity, are protected. Take time to research the background of various holidays and customs. The Watchtower and Awake magazines often explain the origins of such celebrations. By reviewing these, we keep Jehovah's view fresh in mind and build conviction in our heart. Dear brothers and sisters, obeying Jehovah in this way brings more than safety. It brings joy. The world may call us narrow, extreme, or rigid, but Jehovah calls us faithful, loyal, and wise. He blesses those who love His law and keep it. True happiness does not come from blending into society. It does not come from following every cultural trend. It comes from knowing Jehovah, trusting in Him, and doing what is right, even when it is hard. Let us continue to reject unscriptural beliefs and customs. Let us rely on Jehovah's wisdom, not human tradition. And above all, let us trust that Jehovah, who sees everything and knows our heart, will protect us, guide us, and bless us with the deep happiness that only comes from obedience. Welcome, brothers, to Spiritual Gems for this week, September 7th, 2025. We begin with the first question: what is flattery? And in what way does a man who flatters his neighbor spread out a net for his feet? Flattery is false or exaggerated praise, intended not to build up, but to gain something for oneself. As Proverbs 29:5 says, a man who flatters his neighbor spreads out a net for his feet, meaning that such praise is like a trap, appealing to the other person's pride in order to manipulate or obligate him. Rather than showing godly wisdom, flattery reveals selfish motives, hypocrisy, and insincerity, qualities that Jehovah disapproves of. Therefore, flattery not only harms the one being praised by feeding his vanity, but it also damages the character of the flatterer, distancing him from the honesty and uprightness that should mark a servant of Jehovah. Next question: what spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share? Proverbs 29:1 teaches us that accepting correction with humility saves me from greater blows. Jehovah does not use counsel to shame me, but to protect me. Proverbs 29:4 when a leader becomes corrupt, the consequence is not just individual, but national. An entire people suffer the results of the greed and dishonesty of those who govern. Jehovah, however, will not allow injustice to rule forever. The Bible promises that He will intervene and bring an end to corrupt human governments. Today, the corruption of rulers causes suffering, but Jehovah will bring a perfect, stable, and eternal government where justice will be the standard and all people will enjoy true peace. Proverbs 29:5 Jehovah approves of words that build up and encourage with sincerity, but He condemns hypocrisy. Flattery is dangerous because it can inflate pride, lead the deceived person to trust in the wrong things, or even turn them away from the truth. Proverbs 29:6 teaches that sin may seem to help you get out of trouble, but it ends up like a chain. You cheat thinking, it's easier this way, but then you carry guilt and fear. On the other hand, obeying Jehovah may cost you something, but it leaves you with a clean conscience. Proverbs 29:8 Proud people inflame a town, but the wise calm contention. Pride stirs strife and division. Humility and wisdom soothe conflict and restore harmony. In our interactions with family, congregation, co-workers, we can follow the wise example by gently diffusing anger rather than fueling it. Proverbs 29:9 If a wise person litigates with a fool, there will be ranting and insult, but no satisfaction. Trying to reason with someone who's deliberately unreasonable leads only to frustration. Instead, choose your battles. Sometimes stepping away or responding tactfully preserves peace and dignity better than arguing. Proverbs 29:13 Jehovah is the one who gives life and understanding to all equally. If everything comes from Him, there is no room for pride or contempt. This helps me not to feel superior or inferior and to treat everyone with respect. I want to thank Jehovah for each day and use my life to serve, not to take advantage of others. Proverbs 29:16 This verse reminds us that even if wickedness increases, we should not be discouraged. Jehovah has already determined the end of the unjust, and they will fall. Our work is to remain faithful, to keep praying, preaching, and living with integrity. That gives us peace and keeps us firm until Jehovah acts. Proverbs 29:17. Teaches us that correction is not a cruel punishment, it is loving guidance. A father who corrects at the right time protects from bad decisions and shows genuine care for his child. At home, this means setting clear rules, explaining the reasons, and correcting calmly, not in anger. The result is peace in the family and joy for the parents. As a child, I also want to accept correction and improve. Proverbs 29:23 shows us two paths. Arrogance leads to shame, while humility leads to honor. In our case, we want to reap humility because we know it is the path that pleases Jehovah. Proverbs 29:24 teaches that covering up for a thief not only harms others, it also destroys me. If I remain silent or justify what is wrong, I become part of the harm and carry guilt and fear. Jehovah loves truth. That is why I prefer to speak honestly, set limits, and not participate in anything unjust, even if it involves a friend or family member. Protecting sin never protects the heart. Proverbs 29:25 says that the fear of man is a snare. When I make decisions just to please others, I end up trapped by their opinions. In contrast, trusting in Jehovah gives me the courage to do what is right, even when there is pressure at work, at school, or within the family. This week I want to ask for courage in prayer and remember that my refuge is Jehovah, not human approval. Congregation Bible Study, September 7th, 2025. Analysis with question and answer. Let's start by answering the questions from the paragraphs. Let's begin by analyzing Lesson 14, A Slave Who Obeyed God. We now answer the following questions. How did Joseph's brothers treat him? Joseph's brothers treated him very badly because they were jealous and angry that he was their father's favorite and had unusual dreams. First, they grabbed him and threw him into a deep pit. Then, instead of killing him, they sold him as a slave for 20 pieces of silver to merchants going to Egypt. To cover up what they had done, they dipped his coat in goat's blood and sent it to their father, making it seem like Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. Their actions reveal how dangerous envy can become when it's not controlled. It can destroy relationships, lead to dishonesty, and cause deep emotional pain. Yet, even though Joseph suffered because of his brothers, his story later becomes a powerful example of forgiveness, showing that Jehovah can heal broken families when there is humility and change. Let's move on to the next question. Why did Joseph end up in prison? Joseph ended up in prison because of a false accusation. Potiphar's wife repeatedly tried to tempt Joseph to lie down with her, but he kept refusing, saying it would be a sin against God. One day, when Joseph ran away from her, she grabbed his clothes and then lied, saying he had tried to attack her. Potiphar believed her, and, in his anger, had Joseph thrown into prison, even though Joseph had done nothing wrong. This shows that sometimes doing what is right may bring unfair consequences. But that doesn't mean Jehovah has abandoned us. Joseph was innocent, yet he was treated like a criminal. Still, he kept his integrity and trusted in Jehovah. His example teaches us that loyalty to God matters more than pleasing people, and that Jehovah sees our faithfulness even when others misunderstand or mistreat us. Let's move on to the next question. What does this teach us about Jehovah? This teaches us that Jehovah never abandons those who remain faithful to him. Even though Joseph was treated unfairly, sold as a slave, and later thrown into prison for something he didn't do, Jehovah continued to help and bless him. Jehovah saw Joseph's loyalty and gave him strength to keep doing what was right. It reminds us that Jehovah is always aware of our situation and will support us when we humbly trust in him. Next question. What practical lessons can we learn? We can learn several practical lessons from Joseph's experience. First, we should always do what is right in Jehovah's eyes, even when no one is watching, just like Joseph refused to sin, even under pressure. Second, when we face injustice or difficult trials, we can stay faithful and trust that Jehovah is with us. And third, we learn the value of humility and patience, knowing that Jehovah will bless us and lift us up at the right time, just as he did with Joseph. Now we move on to the analysis of Lesson 15. Jehovah never forgot Joseph. First question, how did Jehovah help Joseph? Jehovah helped Joseph by giving him the wisdom to understand Pharaoh's dreams and the courage to speak the truth. Thanks to Jehovah's help, Joseph was able to explain that Egypt would have 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, and he also gave practical advice on how to prepare. As a result, Pharaoh made Joseph the second most powerful man in Egypt, showing that Jehovah was guiding and blessing him even after many trials. But Jehovah's help didn't stop there. He also used Joseph to save many lives during the famine, including his own family. This shows that Jehovah not only helps his faithful servants personally, but can also use them to accomplish greater purposes. Joseph's experience reminds us that Jehovah never abandons his people. He works behind the scenes and brings about good in his own time and way. Next question, how did Joseph show that he forgave his brothers? Joseph showed that he forgave his brothers by reassuring them and not taking revenge. When he finally revealed his identity, he told them, "Don't feel bad because of what you did to me. God sent me here to save your lives." Instead of punishing them, he invited them to bring their father and live in Egypt, where they would be safe. His kind words and actions made it clear that he had truly forgiven them from the heart. Rather than punishing them, Joseph invited his entire family to come live in Egypt, where he could care for them during the famine. This proves that his forgiveness was complete and sincere. His example teaches us that real forgiveness comes from recognizing how Jehovah can use even painful experiences for a greater good. It also reminds us that when we forgive others from the heart, we reflect Jehovah's own mercy and love. Let's move on to the next question. What does this teach us about Jehovah? This teaches us that Jehovah never forgets those who stay faithful to him, no matter how long the trial may last. Even after being mistreated and forgotten in prison, Joseph was still guided and blessed by Jehovah at the right time. It also shows that Jehovah can use difficult experiences to accomplish something good, not just for us, but for others as well. Jehovah values loyalty, forgiveness, and trusts those who trust in him. Next question, what practical lessons can we learn? We can learn several practical lessons from Joseph's experience. First, we should always trust that Jehovah sees our situation and will help us at the right time, even if things seem unfair or delayed. Second, we learn the importance of forgiveness. Joseph didn't hold a grudge, but chose peace and unity with his family. And third, we're reminded that Jehovah can turn painful situations into blessings when we stay faithful, humble, and focused on doing what is right.